Okay, the first rule of the book is actually one of the longest and most complicated, so don't lose faith if you don't really like this rule. The way that you should approach this rule is you should read the rule itself very slowly, very carefully, and then look at the discussion section just above this video here. Finally, watch the video, which we're doing right now, and then later on I'm going to have you pause the video while you take a little quiz regarding the rule. That's generally how this course is going to go. But in terms of rule 1, there's a couple of key points. Once you've read the rule, you'll probably see that there's a difference between international and inland rules. One key thing to note is that when we talk about international and inland, we're not talking about legal jurisdiction such as international waters or coastal waters or interior waters, anything like that. We're specifically talking about the rules. So there are international rules which apply worldwide, and there are inland rules specific to the US in specific areas. If you want to know where these inland rules apply, there's kind of two ways to do that. First, on any given chart of a particular area, there's going to be what's called the Colregs, or collision avoidance regulation, demarcation line. And that's a line that's printed to tell you where the international rules apply and where the inland rules apply. Here's an example of one for Long Island Sound, for instance. The other key thing that you can find out where the inland rules apply is in the back of the Rules of the Road book. It's going to give you specific positions, geographic positions where the inland rules apply and where they don't. These inland rules date from the original rules in the United States, and that's why they're sometimes different than the international rules. The international rules are often called the Colregs, the collision avoidance regulations, and they apply worldwide unless specifically altered by the government of the host nation. As an example, you may think that waters near land are always the inland rules, but in Maine, for instance, only Casco Bay near Portland, Maine, is inland waters. The rest is international. All of the state of Alaska is international rules. Puget Sound near Seattle is international rules as well. San Francisco Bay is inland rules, though. So the rules are going to vary from place to place, and it's important to look on the chart, but also in the back of the Rules of the Road book for where those rules apply. The main types of questions you'll see in Rule 1 regard altered configuration and submarines in terms of lights, right? So first, submarines, buried down in the rules in a little provision, allows submarines to show an alternative light, a yellow flashing light at a specific interval to identify that it is a submarine. So there are generally a couple questions about that, periodically on your exam, so knowing that rule is important. And then the altered configuration rule means that, in essence, if you cannot comply with the lights that you're required to show or any other type of equipment, you need to do so as closely as possible as determined by your government. So to get a sense of this rule, why don't you pause the video right now, take the quiz, and then we'll go over it in just a second. So let's take a look at these questions. The first one, both international and inland. The masthead light may be displaced from the center line on which of the following vessels? Well, in this case, altered configuration applies. It's a special construction vessel as determined by the government. So if you look at the other answers, a power-driven vessel less than 12 meters, an air cushion vessel in non-displacement mode, or a vessel engaged in trolling, those are not special construction as choice C indicates. So altered configuration, special construction, those type of vessels, as determined by the government, can have an altered configuration of their lights. The second question, both international and inland, an authorized light to assist the identification of submarines is an intermittent flashing amber or yellow light. There's a specific interval in the rules, but if you look at the other answers, the flashing side lights, the blue rotating light, that's for law enforcement vessels, that's found in the annexes, and then a flashing white light is used for signaling, similar to how a sound signal would be given. So in this case, choice C is correct, the flashing amber and yellow light. The third question, inland only, and note that it says inland only. As you read test questions, you should really look at that first because it definitely matters. You're on a vessel that the Secretary has determined cannot comply with the spacing requirements for masthead lights. What is required in this situation? Well, you're an altered configuration vessel in this case, and your lights need to comply as closely as possible. So if you look at the other answers, the vessel must be altered. That's not necessarily true. An all-around light should be substituted. You're never going to really substitute all-around lights for individual lights. The vessel must carry only the lights that comply with the rules and omitting others. That doesn't make sense because the lights need to show all the way around your vessel, so you would never omit lights. That leaves choice D, the vessel's lights must comply as closely as possible, as the correct answer. Finally, question 4, international only. Again, note that it's international only in that case. Where do the international rules apply? It's going to be language straight from the test. It's going to be language straight from the rule for the international section. So as you go back and read that, you'll see that they apply upon the high seas and connecting waters navigable by seagoing vessels. The other answers outside the waters of the territorial sea of the United States, remember we said it's not necessarily a legal distinction, territorial sea, exclusive economic zone, none of that matters for the rules. It's just international and inland rules. Only to waters where foreign vessels travel, that's not necessarily true. And then to all waters which are not inland waters, that's a tricky one. I could see why you may choose that answer, but look at the language specifically in the rule for that one. Upon the high seas and connecting waters, navigable by seagoing vessels.